If you're not happy with what's falling from the sky, be glad. It could be fragments of silicon.
All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon European interviews. Up this week is Marco Pendara of 2 Bits Kid.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, no problem. Thank you for being here. Anyway, so let's get into it. We like to start the interview by asking the people who are here what got them into video games, both on a personal and a professional level.
I think that personal level, you see, I'm 42. I started playing games when the Amiga was around, and I was a big player of the RPGs of that era, and a bit of car games like Lotus and arcades of that period. Professionally, since I am an illustrator since about 20 years now, I had the dream of adapting some of the few games that I loved back then in a modern with some modern way of telling stories, and that's what basically brought me to Sense. But also before, I did some localization work and adaptation work for games like this, like Eye of Beholder for Amiga, and a bit of tinkering with Alien and games like that.
Hmm. And how long have you been with 2 Bits Kid? And are you
Since the,
are
sorry.
you like founder?
Yeah, I'm a founder since I'm there since the start in May 2012.
Hmm. That's a fairly long stretch of time, 6 years.
Yes, but basically, Sense, which is the our main work, has been much bigger than what we expected at the start.
At a dime for every developer who has mentioned that on our program.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
shit.
Oh, right. So I suppose we should, well, once again, start at the beginning of Aeon of Sands here. Obviously, this game was influenced by old school dungeon crawlers like Wizardry and the like. But where did the choose your own adventure part come from? That's been
Yes. Uh, the games I loved back then, they were much imaginative. They let people playing them figure for themselves a lot of things about the story, but also about the ambient and the backgrounds, the lore, etc. At the start, I thought that I missed a more direct way to tell a story, a more narrative way to do it. But the way that other RPGs, more current RPGs like Beware games or Black Isle games do, it's not exactly for me. I like them, but I did not like the fact that I was so much empowered to basically to shape a world, to shape the lives of the companions on a party, for instance. And what I wanted to do here, what we wanted to do with Sense was to tell a story in a way that you felt more like a character in a narrative and not the god moving things around. So that's why we choose this particular medium, the choose your adventure story, like in the game books from that were popular in the 80s, that let you also make big mistakes and go in on different paths, which are not inherently good or bad. They are just particular, and so that things we felt was a plus, and we wanted to have this in sense.
And I gotta admit, that's a really unusual approach for a computer RPG, to be so character focused. It's like usually it's kind of the opposite. Like if there's a story, it's all about the narrative, and it's like your character is, well, whatever you roll, kind of.
Yes, that's a part of the things that I was describing earlier. We don't want didn't want. Okay, we had at some point to take some compromise to let the player understand better, make their characters a bit more their own. But the core of the game, the core of the treatment of characters in the sense is that basically we don't want the player to stress too much about making to stats about to stress too much about stats, too much about building a Dungeons and Dragons character build or something like that. We wanted to focus on playing the hand that they were dealt with. I don't know if I was clear enough.
No, yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Like, and in regards to the dungeon crawler aspect, what made you focus on that as opposed to like side view or whatever?
Sorry, as opposed
as opposed to other perspectives. It's
this is simple.
Yeah,
it's basically what we knew. You see, I am not a very accomplished game designer, as opposed, for instance, to my colleague. And this kind of games is what I knew because I tinkered with them very lot. I opened them. I tried to make them work differently when I was a kid, and since then. So I wanted to have this kind of perspective. I wanted to have this kind of approach to the world. Of course, it's not very, very modern. But what we discovered by having this game played by kids, for instance, at fair, is that strangely, this kind of approach appeals more to people who never play games like this. So basically, I think that there is something that is maybe universal is too big a word, but something very direct with this kind of approach. I think it's a bit more immediate than, for instance, isometric games, which requires you to learn a bit more.
I can understand the approach, making a, especially since this is grid and tile based.
Yeah.
Fairly easy. Now, on that note, are the dungeons randomly generated or are they actually built?
No, they are actually built. We toyed with the possibility to do a bit of random generation, but we were never satisfied with that. We wanted to build the mazes with a lot of personal touches and comments and things to search for, and that basically needs a hands-on approach.
Right. excuse me for a bit. Petty, you need to pull on a root on one of the walls. Oh, sorry, he's having a bit of
Yeah,
progressing.
sure.
Yeah, it's like anyway. And also, is the choose your own adventure segment, built, or is that randomly generated as well?
No, everything in the game is built, is completely built from scratch. There is no random generation. Of course, there is a random part in the game, which is sometimes maybe a monster drop has a chance to drop something that is different than something else that you usually see, or maybe there are there is a feeling that because you have taken a different route through the game than what you usually do, something random happen. It's not the case. There are only a few random encounters that can happen on your travels, but they are very special, very hush-hush, so I cannot talk about them.
Makes sense. Want to keep things spoiler free, especially since the game isn't technically out yet. Anyway, how much adherence to realism does this game have? As in, do you have to worry about hunger, thirst, and encumbrance and the like?
No, you don't. Okay, you have a fixed space amount of space in your inventory. That's for obvious. That's a obvious limitation. But we didn't want to have thirst or hunger, nor the need to sleep, because we tried a bit with them in some kind in some. They I think we thought that they work better in games built around that concept, but we wanted the Innocent to be approachable. For instance, while I have a long experience with these games, I have a lot of difficulty with Dungeon Master, with which had a very strong concept of consuming things to survive. You can consume, like I see in the game that you are playing on live here. You see that I see that you have a leaf on your second hand. We call it the shield hand, and this is something that you can consume to boost your stats. Health or stamina, but you are not required to do so. You don't lose those stats by simply walking around.
And well, that's good. I'll be honest. I've never had a particular favoritism towards dealing with hunger and thirst in video games. It's like I get why they're there, but I'm like they were always more annoying than anything else. But that's a personal preference.
It's also
I like to explore stuff, and having a hunger meter usually gets in the way of that because you get hungry when you're trying to explore.
Yeah, we try to put only one obstacle to exploration, which is the difficulties of the encounters. I mean, I talk about the difficulty, but that's a broad term. I mean, somebody can find fighting very easy. Somebody else can find it a bit difficult, especially if it's used to turn-based games. But beside of that, we didn't want this kind of difficulty to hindrance exploration and narrative, because they are the core.
Indeed. And yeah, it's like I've played a bit of the game, and everything is pretty streamlined for a first-person dungeon crawler in terms of like mechanics and what you can do. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like it's like I know there are those people who like that kind, like all of the complexity that certain CRPGs can offer. But there's plenty of those. Not everyone has to focus on, combat and stats and grinding and all that stuff.
Yeah, I share that obviously that point of view. I have a great respect for a lot of different kind of games, but I never felt the compulsion to repeat something because only because it's very popular. In this case, we wanted to have an experience approachable to most of people, most of players, and I'm really honest here. It could be that a lot of our core core audience may not like this because maybe they are in love with wizardry or game or might and magic, which are games that are turn-based with a lot of stress on resources, breaking, for instance, item breaking, etc. But it's really nice for us to what we have experienced, as I said before, in fairs, to see people who had no experience with this kind of game love them because they are gamers who may come to love RPGs in the future. We didn't want to build a wall between the game and them.
Yeah, makes sense, especially since, well, not for nothing, but a lot of CRPGs, especially back in the old days, were pretty inaccessible. Like if you were outside the realm of people who were like into pen and paper RPGs and the like.
Yeah. Yes.
Once again, it's neither a good nor bad thing. It's just how it was.
Yeah. And there are, for instance, if I play Dungeons and Dragons on an adventure with my friends, pen and paper night, whatever, I like to have details, technical details not done wrong. This is important. It's just a different kind of game.
Right. And now, is there any sort of stat tracking in the game, or
yes.
does the player not have to worry about that at all?
No, there is. If I can guide you actually from here, if you press, if you click your mouse on a portrait of your main character now, you see the inventory, and in the inventory, okay, that's good. If you press on the name, click on the name in the middle of the screen, Setrani.
Right.
If you do it, you see the stats of the character. The stats are affected from the equipment that you find and make your character wear or consume. And we have also in turn, and they can also grow your by using them. So for instance, if you cast magic and you are successful, your stat governing them increases. And or melee or range, sorry, there are mechanics in play, exactly that panel. There are mechanics in play that governs all of these kind of things. The traits that you see here, yeah?
Yeah, I know this kind of experience system. It's the more you do something, the more proficient you are at it.
Exactly. And it's a logarithmic scale, so it's not, it becomes more difficult the more you go on to improve them. Also, this underlines the fact that we didn't want the characters to become basically superheroes. We wanted to, since this is a very small story in terms of scope, you are not saving a galaxy or something like that. We wanted to have basically relatable and realistic, kind of realistic, even if a bit grotesque characters to basically survive this, not to become the rulers of the world. So you never become a superhero here. You just become a bit better at what you do.
Uh, yeah, I think we've all experienced that high level. Oh, I'm, basically a god, or
Yeah.
or I remember like one D&D campaign I played. There was a character called Lord Better Than God, because his stats were literally better than any god in the game. So.
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
entertainment. Everything is okay, but maybe there is enough about that kind of narrative already in the world. I don't know.
perhaps. Anyway, along those lines, when you get other characters, you can't hit them and get better at doing hitting, right?
Sorry, you can get better at doing.
You can't attack your own party and get better at it that way, can you?
Nope, but you can do through your choices. You can actually make people very pissed, or people in your party very pissed, or you can maybe. In some cases, also shape their attitude. Their what they do in the game, but not in the way that Black Isle games do it. Sorry, I name Black Isle not because I have anything against them. I'm just using them as an example. You cannot, for instance, Pillars of Eternity. You cannot shape them to become something very different from what they are. You cannot also kill your party this way. There are ways to kill your party, but not that way.
Yeah, good. So we're also avoiding the Final Fantasy II problem.
Yeah.
Right. Before I continue on, I want to see if my colleagues have any specific questions of their own about this game here.
I'm pretty good so far looking at it, but Pettyfan's playing, so I don't know if he has maybe come up with something.
Betty?
Oh, I actually muted myself.
Oops.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Anyway.
As far as I can see, there's nothing, too terrible about the game that gives me any questions. It's just I've been out of this for so long.
Well, thankfully, it's pretty accessible.
Indeed.
So.
Yeah, first-person dungeon crawlers are a little bit different than a lot of other games because you have to keep track of like what direction you're facing and stuff. Having a good map helps, though.
I was about to say I'm glad it gives me a map because I don't have any graph paper on hand.
All right. Anyway, so continuing onward, given how much focus there is on the story and the characters, I suppose we should talk about them in as much detail as we can without, getting into spoilers. Like,
okay.
For example, who is the character of Setanari?
Cetrani. Yeah, it's somebody thinks that it's a horrible name. I understand it. It was basically on a whim and stuck. But yes, Cetrani is a gardener. We call it the clerk, like in the movie, because it's basically a lowly clerk in a city. Is supposed to tend this big, huge, giant tree, sacred tree, that provides shelter and basically life to the settlement that is built around it, and is like. I don't know. I tend to think about him like a kind of Donald Duck of the situation. He don't want to go on this mission or whatever this is, and he never wants to work, or and to the point of the story, he always tries to see the easy way out or a way to have some kind of advantage from a situation because it's very scared of the situation is put in, he has been put in. And basically there is this huge tree with a city on, and this guy is sent out of this sheltered living accommodation on a silly mission, and out of this there is a desert, and the desert is for the purpose of the game endless. All of the people here think that the desert is all there is, and of course, because the desert is very harsh with two suns over it, people is not very keen on having acquaintances or doing a lot of social life outside this dome, this city. And so there is a very tribalistic, very xenophobic, is that an English word, attitude with whatever there is outside, and what may come from it.
Mm-hmm. And what sort of companions is the cleric going to meet on his adventures?
Very early on, you can maybe meet another fellow of this dome city, who is not very keen of accompanying the cleric out, because out is scary, out is very dangerous, but also is necessary. Going out is necessary, so it's not very happy companion. Then you can meet people from different kind of live-in accommodations, live-in different approach of living the desert. So maybe different tribes. There is a big thing here between the people who live in a city who have some kind of values, some kind of basically stability, protection, rule, and whatever is needed to put a lot of people together in the same place. And on the other side, people who roam on the desert freely and are sustains themselves by robbing the people who find and make slave of them. And you can find also people from this. You can meet also people from this different way of living. And the interesting thing, at least the thing that we try to make interesting is trying to find a way for them to live in together, to go on together within the party. And there is more.
Well, how big would you say this game is?
Oh, big in terms of hours, for instance. Mm-hmm. We have a beta tester currently, a tester of the game, with at the 15 hours mark, and he says that he's about halfway through. But also we have another one who finished it in 8 hours, I think. So something in between. It's very dependent on not only on how slowly you go and how you explore, but also and mostly on the choices you take in the dialogues, because they open different paths and close some other. So basically, it's very difficult to or impossible two times. But that's for the time. For about the size, we have about 60 levels, 60 mazes. But again, you don't access them one after the other, like in other games. You access maybe half or 2/3 of them during a single play. There are mazes that are basically big arenas, and there are mazes that are actual mazes, labyrinths, and very large.
Right. And it sounds like there's quite a bit of replay value here as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Especially since I'm not sure if this has been conveyed yet to the audience, but um, you the saving system is on an auto save.
We have both. We have an automatic system, an automatic saving system, which currently is set to save the game every 5 minutes, I think. And we have, of course, the manual system.
Yeah, good.
If you, okay, sorry, go on.
No, that's fine because I suppose the question in regards to save is, can you maintain multiple saves at once?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, because that's a pretty big part of exploring role-playing games fully. Like it's like you're at a couple of branches. You want to save there, take one branch, and then come back to the other branch later, kind of deal.
Yes, it's possible, but I would not recommend that. I mean, it depends on how much you like the game in the end, if you like to play it or not. I would recommend to somebody who like the game to not stress too much about the choices taken and do simply take it in stride and the next time do something different. But of course, you can do also that thing that you described, reload, and that's something different. It's very important for me to convey that there are really no wrong choices here. There are very different choices that takes you to different paths and to different endings of the game, but not inherently wrong ones.
That's actually really good to hear because once again, going back to the old school dungeons and stuff, just old school game design, unwinnable states were certainly a thing if you did the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's like maybe not so much in like dungeon crawlers, but like I certainly played a lot of games back in the day where you do the wrong thing and you got to start over. So.
Yeah, it happened to me too, but I don't know. I sincerely don't know if that was the main problem because the main problem for us specifically, because there is something nice in that too. Finding that maybe 3 levels in the game you want to restart in a different game. I'm not talking about the innocence, but you want to restart because you have done something wrong. There is an aspect of our desires or compulsions are as humans. Oh, you have died. Sorry.
Yeah.
There is a compulsion in us as humans to have the better settings that we can get. Right. It's not particularly healthy, but there is there. So, in a sense, we try not to do that.
Makes sense, given everything here. Anyway, shifting to kind of under the hood. Was this game built in like Unity or Unreal?
No, when we started, when we started, those engines were not at the place that they are now. They were unstable. There were problems. They were not probably not so well documented as they are currently, and we used an engine that my colleague Florian Fischer built from scratch in Low. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly because it's a German word, but Low with a funny accent on the O. It's a scripting code, scripting code, and it has a very good feature for me because I am basically code illiterate, to be able to understand what happens under the hood, as you said. So I can actually help Florian with fixing the values, for instance, that he asked me to, or add comments directly in the code, which I would not be able to do in other with other coding because they are basically too big for me, too large a thing for me, and. But it was a choice. It was not basically a choice of what was best around. It was about what we knew, or what Florian knew and wanted to use at the time, and it was an happy choice in the end. It was happy event in the end, because it made this possible in a way that it was not it had not a too steep learning curve.
Makes sense. And now you are also the illustrator, art director, designer on this project, correct?
Yes, you see, we are two-person in the end, with some help from with a great help from a friend musician, but all of the rest has been done by us. If I want to be specific here, because we had help also on some animations, some spell animation by two talented pixel artists. Richard Schmidt-Bauer and Stefan Kaule, two German artists who Florian made contact with. And we have this musician friend of mine, Gabriele Artuso, who is Italian, who created the basically the 36 or about between 36 and 40 ambient tracks that the game uses, and that's it. And we have a proofreader. We have some friends, editor, proofreader. We have some friends who helps us with beta testing and all of that. But the production is basically done by Florian and me. I did the narrative, the story, the ambientation, the dialogues in Twine, which is a free language tool, a free narrative tool to build interactive adventures. Then I did the graphic, all that you see on screen, the user interface, the word, the illustrations, etc. And in the end, I edited, basically I did post-production to the music by Gabriele, and I created, recorded in real life or used free resources online with a Creative Commons license to build the pool of audio effects in the game. Then there is Florian, who did all the code work, and is a master game designer. He basically taught me how to game design during all of these years. And he did that, and he also maintained the code and maintains the system that we use to insert to add the asset in the game, which is GitHub. Sorry, GitLab. I'm never sure which of the two, GitHub or GitLab. And also the marketing is done by the two of us.
I can see why this took, 6 years?
Yes.
And was this game subject to any sort of crowdfunding campaign?
No, we didn't. It's not that we didn't believe in that, but we did believe that we were not equipped to do a good campaign at the time. So the game is all completely self-funded.
Okay. Now, admittedly, that not the most common thing in the world these days, but games do exist. And what computer platforms are you building this towards? Is it Windows only?
At the start of release, it will be Windows 10, Windows and Mac OS. It will be geared for those two platforms. After sometimes, probably we will do also a Linux release. But after that, everything depends on the how the games is received and how things goes for us financially, because maintaining something like this, even only post sale maintenance is quite a big task, and so we have not decided, not committed on anything yet.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, you're a team of 2 full-times plus a bit of assistance. Like any sort of porting work done by you guys would have to come down the line, I'd imagine, especially since you're not using a middleware solution like Unity.
Exactly.
So, it's like just speaking my time of the game, I could see this being played on a mobile device, or we're talking.
Well, we tried to during the development to leave some doors open to that point. For instance, using exactly touch device. Designing a control system that would be adaptable to touch devices, etc. But the point is that there is a quality on this game which is very artisanal, very workmanship. I'm not sure about the English word, but maybe workmanships, whatever, artisanal. And this is a good thing and also a bad thing, because the good part is that I hope at least that the care, the heart that we poured in the Innocent shows. On the other side, it's a bit of difficult to shape for other platforms, or shape for what you said before, a Kickstarter campaign and stuff like that. It is what it is.
Indeed. And let's see. Given that the game is coming out next week, have you settled on a price for the game yet?
Yes, I'm not sure that I am that I can tell you, because these kind of decisions are taken basically by Florian, or by Florian with me. But I can tell you that it will be priced that in the range of indie games like this, and not like a AAA game.
Okay, that's good to hear. Right. Well, I think that's about good for me in my line of questioning. I'll see if my colleagues have anything else they wish to ask.
Sure.
I think I'm good.
I'm looking forward to trying the game out. It looks pretty interesting.
Thank you.
No problem, no problem. Anyway, the game is Aeon of Sands, The Trail. It comes out next week, December 4th. About 7 days. Coming to Mac and Windows platforms, with a Linux build coming sometime in the future. Anyway, Marco, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule for being with us. And we're looking forward to playing the game and reviewing it. The review will be probably next year because of our current queue. But we'll send you a link when we eventually get around to it.
Thank you, guys. It was very nice to talk with you.
No problem, no problem. All right, so that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for our main show, as our good friend John Pickett from Manga Gamer will be joining us once again. And I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are as well. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.
Thank you. Bye.